Good morning, guys. We are on lesson 2, the hare and the tortoise, the ants and the grasshopper, and fish is what our lessons are going to cover today. So our content framing question is, what is happening in Aesop's fables? So we're going to try to figure out what's going on in these fables that we've read. Remember, we have read the ants and the grasshopper and the hare and the tortoise. Oops. Let me pause there a second because I went one too far back. All right, so welcome. What are features? We talked about features in our last lesson. Remember, features are like our noses, our mouths, our fingers, our arms, our legs. Those are features. So what are some features on animals? Well, some of them have tails. Some of them have longer legs, longer arms. Some of them have long ears. Some of them have short ears. They have whiskers. Great. Okay. Well, so what I want us to do is I am going to display the illustration of the characters shown on our lessons that we've had. So let's look at our first one here. Oops, it did it again. Hold on, my friends. All right, so let's look at the features of the grasshopper here. Notice he's got some antenna. He's got some bigger eyes here. He's got some longer legs here, and it looks like his arms are a little bit shorter, don't they? He's got a long, slender body, and he's got, looks like wings, and he's got an exoskeleton, which makes him hard on the outside. That way it protects his insides, okay? So that is some of his features. So let's take that one out, and let's see if we can get this one open. So let's look at the hare and the tortoise, their features. The hare has whiskers, little bitty nose, it's got some shorter legs, it's furry all over, has longer ears, small eyes. Then you look at the tortoise, he has a shell, shorter legs, looks like he's got claws on him, a shorter tail, and he's kind of got a long neck with a smaller head. Okay, so those are features of all these animals. So we've just discussed features of animals. Now we're going to identify features of a story. So let's look at our content framing question again. And Echo, read it with me, please. What is happening in Aesop's fables? So what elements do we look for in a story? Well, the elements that we're going to look for in our story is characters, setting, problem, and resolution. Okay? For characters are the people or animals that are in the story. The setting is where it takes place. The problem is what's going on. What's happening there? And the resolution is, how is this problem fixed? So, it says take out copy handout 1A, which is actually a story map chart. All right, and I've pulled my story map chart out. I've got it right here, okay? I've got my story map chart, and I've got it set up as characters, as setting, as problem, and resolution. Well, it says on here, what do the names of the characters tell us? So you're going to follow along as I read the first sentence of the story and think about who the character may be. So let's look at our story again. All right, so I'm going to read the first sentence of the story and think about who the characters may be, okay? So I want you to listen to me reading this first sentence here. It says, one bright day in late autumn, a family of ants were bustling about in the warm sunshine, drying out the grain they had stored up during the summer, when a starving grasshopper, his fiddle under his arm, came up and humbly begged for a bite to eat. So let's think about this. Who do you think the characters could be in that story? Well, it talked about what? Ants and grasshoppers. So do you think those would be my characters for this story map? You are absolutely right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write those. I'm going to pause that so you can see me do this on my map. All right. I am going to write ants and grasshopper. So who do you think the main character is in this story? It's really both of them, isn't it? Because it's the main characters. That's who the story is about. So I'm going to put a little star beside each of their names. So those are the main characters of the ants and the grasshopper. All right, I'm going to slide this back over because we're going to use it here again shortly. So let's move on to our next one. So what does the setting tell us? So a setting tells us where the story takes place. So I'm going to read again. So I'm going to have you follow again as I read that first sentence. And I want you to listen for the setting. All right? So let me read the story again, and I'm going to read it. One bright day in late autumn, a family of ants were bustling about in the warm sunshine, drying out the grain they had stored up during the summer, when a starving grasshopper, his fiddle under his arm, came up and humbly begged for a bite to eat. So, did you hear a setting in that? Where was the setting at? Oh, it was in autumn, which is another word for fall. Great. On a bright day. So they were possibly outside, right? Okay. So let's write that on our chart again. So I am going to pause that, and I'm going to move this back over so we can add our setting to our map. So our characters, we have ants and grasshopper, and our setting, I am going to put a bright day in autumn. And I'm down here outside. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we have our characters, and now we have our setting where the story takes place. So I'm going to slide this back across. All right, so what does the problem tell us about? So a problem is what's happening, what's going on, right? Okay, so now you're going to follow along and listen for the problem. So listen carefully. On a bright day in autumn, a family of ants were bustling about in the warm sunshine, drying out the grain they had stored up during the summer, when a starving grasshopper, his fiddle under his arm, came up and humbly begged for a bite to eat. What? Cried the ants in surprise. Haven't you stored anything away for the winter? What in the world were you doing all last summer? Well, I didn't have time to store up any food, whined the grasshopper. I was so busy making music that before I knew it, the summer was gone. The ants shrugged their shoulders in disgust. Making music, were you? They cried. Well, very well. Now dance. and they turned their backs on the grasshopper and went on their way with their work. Wow. Huh. So, what do you think the problem is? What is our problem in our story? Oh, yeah, you're right. The grasshopper didn't have any food to eat, did he? That was a problem. So, we're going to write that on our story map now. So, I'm going to close that down for a minute. I'm going to slide this back over. And we're going to write our problem. The grasshopper does not have any food to eat. So I'm going to write that right here. Grasshopper doesn't have any food to eat. Wow, that is a big problem, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so we have our characters, ants and grasshopper. We have our setting, a bright day in autumn outside. And the problem is grasshopper doesn't have food to eat. We've got to figure out how this problem is going to be fixed, don't we? All right, so I'm going to slide this back over. All right, so we've written our story problem out. So finish reading the fable, which we just did, and think of how this story is going to end, the resolution of the story. What is the resolution? Think about it. How was this problem fixed? Or was it fixed? Did the ants give grasshopper any food? Nope, they didn't, did they? They sure didn't. So what happened to grasshopper? He's still hungry, isn't he? He sure is. Okay. So let's write that on our board, on our paper. So we'll pause that again. Bring this over. I'm getting good at sliding. Resolution. The ants didn't give grasshopper any food. Grasshopper was still hungry. Wow. That's kind of sad, isn't it? Because he played so much, he didn't store up his own food. So he was still hungry. So I bet he had to go and find food, didn't he? I'm sure he did. All right, I'm going to slide this back over, turn this back on again. So what I want you to do is, with somebody close by you at your house, like mom, dad, grandma, your brothers or sisters, I want you to retell the ants and the grasshoppers story using those story elements. Tell them who the characters were, what the setting was, what the problem was, and the resolution. Okay? So if I was retelling my story, let me slide it back down here. I would probably say, well, the characters in the ants and the grasshopper were the ants and the grasshoppers. And it took place in autumn outside on a bright, beautiful day. The problem was grasshopper didn't have any food to eat. He was trying to get food from the ants, and the ants were like, no, you can't have any food from us. You've been playing and we've been working really hard. The resolution, the ants didn't give him any food and the grasshopper was still hungry. Great job. All right, so what do we learn about the problem from the grasshopper's interaction with the ants in the first 3 paragraphs? So what did we learn? Well, I know one thing. The grasshopper was hungry and he wanted food, didn't he? The grasshopper didn't have food because he didn't store anything up like the ants did. And the ants had food because they worked all over the summer storing food for the winter because they knew they had to have this food. But the grasshopper did too, and he just kept putting it off and putting it off because he wanted to play. So number 2, what do you learn about resolution from the grasshopper's interaction with the ants in the last 2 paragraphs? Well, the ants were disgusted with the grasshopper. That means they were really upset with the grasshopper. The ants didn't want to give grasshopper any food, and the ants told grasshopper to dance, and they just kept on working because he wanted to play and they wanted to work. So now we're going to use handout 1B, and we're going to retell the story of the hare and the tortoise. Okay, so let me get handout 1B for us. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, I've got my handout of the story map. I'm ready to go with that. And what you're going to do is follow along and listen to the story being read. So I'm going to read the next story, The Hare and the Tortoise, to you, okay? So listen carefully then. A hare was making fun of the tortoise one day for being so slow. Do you ever get anywhere, he asked with a mocking laugh. Yes, replied the tortoise, and I get there sooner than you think. I'll run you a race and I'll prove it. The hare was so much amused at the idea of running a race with the tortoise, but for the fun of the thing, he agreed. So the fox, who had consented to act as judge, marked the distance and started the runners off. The hare was soon far out of sight, and to make the tortoise feel very deeply how ridiculous it was for him to try a race with the hare, he laid down beside the course to take a nap until the tortoise could catch up. The tortoise, meanwhile, kept going slowly but steadily, and after a time passed the place where the hare was sleeping. But the hare slept on peacefully, and when at last he did wake up, the tortoise was near the goal. The hare now ran his swiftest, but he could not overtake the tortoise in time. Wow. Okay. So it says you're supposed to work in small groups and assign one of the story elements and focus on it and write it down. Well, guess what? We can't work in small groups right now, so we are going to work together to do this, okay? So we will add it to our story map. So let me see here. Pause that there. So let's bring our story map out. So let's think about our characters in The Hare and the Tortoise. So our characters in The Hare and the Tortoise, excuse me. Well, of course, we have the hare and we have the tortoise. And you could say the fox because he was kind of like the judge. He doesn't have a big part in the story, so he's not really a major character. But who are the major characters? The hare and the tortoise. Good. Okay. So let's think about the setting of our story. Where did it take place? Well, it had to be outside because they were running a race, right? So we're going to put outside. Okay. So the problem, what's the problem? Oh, you know what the problem was? The hare was making fun of the tortoise for being so slow. So our problem is hare made fun of tortoise for being slow. Wow, that wasn't very nice, was it? No, we shouldn't make fun of people for being slow, should we? So, how was this problem fixed? What's our resolution to this problem? Well, the tortoise keeps going, doesn't he? And he wins the race. Tortoise keeps going to win the race. Where was hare at during this time? Hare was sleeping. And I put that in parentheses just so we know. Hare was sleeping. So let's look at our story map again. Our characters of the hare and tortoise are hare, tortoise, and fox. Remember, fox is not a main character, but the hare and tortoise are. Our setting, it took place outside. Our problem was hare made fun of tortoise for being so slow because he thought, he's a turtle, he's gonna run slow. I can beat him any day. The resolution, tortoise kept on going to win the race, but hare stopped and he took a nap and he's still sleeping. So tortoise won that race. So let me move this back over, bring my questions up here. So my questions are, what do you learn about the problem from hare's interaction with the tortoise in the first two paragraphs? Well, what did we learn? Tortoise didn't stop, did he? Nope. Tortoise kept going. He did not stop. He persevered and made his way through. Number 4, the beginning of the last paragraph states, the tortoise meanwhile kept slowly but steadily. What does steadily mean? What do you think steadily means? He went slow, didn't he? He just kept a certain pace and he just kept going. He didn't stop. He didn't stop. The last sentence says, the hare now ran his swiftest, but could not overtake the tortoise in time. What does this tell us about the resolution? Well, we know hare can move really fast, meaning he's the swiftest, but he didn't beat the tortoise, did he? No, he didn't. In the end, tortoise beats the hare. Tortoise beats the hare. So what I want you to do now is grab that partner, the same one you had just a few minutes ago, and I want you to retell this story to your partner, the hare and the tortoise, using our story elements. So if I bring our story elements back over, use our chart to help you tell the story. You tell about your characters, the hare and the tortoise, and the fox can be put in that story too. Tell about where it took place, outside. You can tell the problem about hare made fun of tortoise for being so slow, and the resolution, tortoise kept going to win the race. Hare was sleeping. Those are such great stories to retell. I love retelling stories like that. So, we have learned that fables are imaginary stories, and we've learned new information about animals. So what information have we learned about how tortoises move? Well, we know tortoises, they move slow, right? They move slow. Reading stories is one way we get information about a topic. A topic is what the story is about. Writings that have a lot of information about something is called an informative writing. Informative writing teaches us something about a topic. So, why is the structure of an informative paragraph important? Well, when you write informative paragraphs, you're writing to show what you know about a topic. So, I've got an informative paragraph that I'm going to read about grasshoppers, and I want you to listen to new information about grasshoppers. This says, grasshoppers. Grasshoppers have special legs. Their back legs are long and strong. They use their legs for jumping. Some grasshoppers rub their back legs and wings together to sing. Grasshoppers' legs are special. Wow. So let's think, pair share here. What did we learn from the paragraph? Well, you know what I learned? I learned they have special legs, that they're strong, and they use them for jumping and for singing. If they rub their legs together, they sing. Wow. Did you all learn the same things I did? That's amazing. So I'm going to show you another handout. It's a topic sandwich chart. All right. So let me stop that, and I want to show you this chart. And you're going to look at it and you're going to go, I recognize that. What is that? Oh my goodness, it's a hamburger. Why in the world do we have a hamburger in the middle of our lesson for? Well, let me tell you, this is our informative writing chart. We have our topic sentence, which is the bun on the top. We have facts and details, which is the juicy stuff in the middle of the burger. And then we have our conclusion, which is the bottom bun. So our topic sentence up here tells us what this all down here is going to be about, the facts and the details. All right. And the conclusion ties everything back up with the topic sentence. So these buns here hold everything in. All right. So now I'm going to slide this over, and we're going to go back into our lesson a moment, and you will understand what this burger is all about. So an informative paragraph is like a sandwich. It has a topic sentence, which is the top slice of bread, the middle, which is the good stuff, which has all the detailed information. This is what makes your story interesting, okay? The conclusion is that bottom slice of bread. The topic statement and conclusion state the topic, which holds all that good stuff together, like I just said. So what we're going to do is right now, we're going to use that paragraph about grasshoppers, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to find the topic sentence of this paragraph. Now remember, a topic sentence is a sentence that tells what the paragraph is about. And we're going to underline it in light green. So I am going to pause this a moment, and I'm going to get my paragraph out here for grasshoppers. Okay, so there's the story about grasshoppers. And it says to underline the topic sentence in light green. Well, let's read over this again, okay? Because remember, the topic sentence tells us what the story is going to be about. So let's read it again. Grasshoppers. Grasshoppers have special legs. Their back legs are long and strong. They use their legs for jumping. Some grasshoppers rub their back legs and wings together to sing. Grasshoppers' legs are special. So what is this all about? Oh, grasshoppers have special. Do you think that could be the topic sentence? Yes. So I'm going to take my green marker and I'm going to underline grasshoppers have special legs because that's my topic sentence. Great job, okay? So let's turn that back on and I'm going to slide this a moment so we can see what we're doing next. It says, the middle paragraph is information as facts and details about the topic sentence. So, what are the facts about the grasshopper in the paragraph? Well, let's look back and see. Because it says we're going to underline the facts in yellow. So the facts is what supports it. So if I'm looking here, it says grasshoppers have special legs. Okay, that's my topic. So what are the facts? Their back legs are long and strong. They use their legs for jumping. Some grasshoppers rub their back legs and wings together to sing. Grasshoppers' legs are special. So what are the facts here? Oh, our facts are their back legs are strong and long. They use their legs for jumping. They rub their back legs and wings together to sing. So I'm going to underline that. I do not have a yellow marker, could not find one, so I'm going to use an orange one. So I'm going to underline their back legs are long and strong. They use their legs for jumping. Some grasshoppers rub their back legs and wings together to sing. Wow, that's a lot of facts. Okay, so far we have a topic sentence, what the story's going to be about. This is the good stuff. This tells us about their special legs. So let's talk and see what happens next in our paragraph. What are we going to be looking for? Well, the conclusion is the ending. So we're going to outline it in dark green, and the conclusion usually restates the topic. So let's look back at it and see if we can find the conclusion. So our conclusion said underline in dark green, so I've got my dark green. The only sentence we haven't underlined is grasshoppers' legs are special. Does this sentence here restate what we have up here? Grasshoppers have special legs? It sure does. So we're going to underline that in darker green. So we have a topic sentence, what the paragraph is about. We have our facts and details, which is the juicy stuff, the really good stuff. And then we have conclusion, which restates our topic sentence up there. You all did amazing on this. Thank you for working so hard on that paragraph about grasshoppers. So, what are the parts of the informative paragraph again? Well, we have our topic sentence, we have our facts and details, and we have a conclusion. And I will show you that hamburger one more time so you can see it there. An informative paragraph, topic sentence, facts and details, the juicy stuff, and we have our conclusion. Now, this won't be the only time you see our hamburger in our stories, okay? But today was the first day we introduced it. All right, so what did we learn about? Why the structure of an informative paragraph is so important. Well, if we didn't have structure in a paragraph, would our paragraphs make sense? They sure wouldn't. You have to start with something that you want to talk about, and then you give details about it, and then you wind it up in that last conclusion sentence to tell and restate what you were talking about. All right? Now, it says to place the sandwich chart in your response journal. I know you don't have a copy of that, so I've got a copy here, so we will use it quite a bit, all right? So don't worry about that. So our content framing question is, what was happening in Aesop's fables? We've been over a lot. So what happened in Aesop's fables? What happened in The Ants and the Grasshopper? The grasshopper didn't get any food, did he? He played, he didn't work. So it's important to get your job done before you play, correct? Yes. And think about the hare and the tortoise. The hare was making fun of the tortoise for being so slow, but in the end, being slow was what got him to the finish line, right? Because the hare stopped and took a nap. The tortoise didn't stop. He kept going. He persevered. Great job, guys. So continue your home reading. Okay, I know you're practicing your reading every day, so that's a great thing. So our deep dive today, we're going to talk about the word move. Move. What do we know about move? I know a lot. Can you stand up and demonstrate what you know? Oh, yeah, I can move. I can move. Woo! So what did you notice about people moving? How did they demonstrate it? Did you get up and dance like I did? Oh, I'm sure you did, because everybody moves differently, all right? Everybody does something differently when you say move. Somebody may take off running across the room. Somebody may hop. Somebody may skip. It's whatever they choose to do. Movement is different for everybody and everything. We all demonstrated different ways to move. So what I want you to do is, we're going to write a definition for the word move. Sometimes we use other words instead of the word move. For example, tilt or bend, all right? So a definition for the word move means to what? Bend, get up, and go in a different direction from somebody else, right? Okay, so we're going to use a poem called Fish by Mary Ann Haberman from our Poetry Foundation. So let me get that brought up. Okay, so let's look at this poem. It is called Fish. Let me see if I can bring it in closer that you can see it possibly. And again, you may or may not be able to. I don't think it's going to let you see it any better. All right, this is called Fish by Mary Ann Haberman. Look at them flit. Lickety split. Wiggling and swiggling, swerving and curving, hurrying, scurrying, chasing, racing, whizzing, whisking, flying, frisking, tearing around with a leap and a bound, but none of them making the tiniest, 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 tiniest sound. Now, think about that poem. How did the fish move? How did that move? Well, I saw it wiggling, flitting, scurrying. I saw lots of different ways. Curving, hurrying, scurrying, racing, chasing, whizzing, flying. Man, that fish was doing all types of movement, wasn't he? Yes. Okay. Now notice when we read that, it didn't ever say the word move, did it? It said other ways the fish moved without saying that word move. So the fish were blank in the water. So I want you to choose one of those ways, and I want you to fill it into this sentence, all right, and act it out. You can write it in your journal. The fish were blank in the water. You could put the scurrying in the water, and you could draw a picture of the fish scurrying in the water, couldn't you? Yes, and you could read it to your partner at home. The fish were hurrying in the water. The fish were darting in the water. The fish were racing. You could choose any of those movement words that you could put in there, okay? So write that in your journal. The fish were blank in the water. And then draw a picture to go with it. Now, we're going to add that word move to our response journal also. So move, if we write that in our journal, what could we say move meant? It means to get up and go a different way, right? You're going to move. So you could write move and then write to move, to get up and go a different direction. And then you could draw a picture of move. All right, so put that in your response journal. All right, guys, that is the end of our lesson today. I learned a lot. I sure did. And I can't wait to see you back here tomorrow. Bye.